Siobhan, obviously as a producer, you work a lot with BAFTA, and you've been heavily involved in the Time's Up and the MeToo campaigns. Just very briefly, if you want to share, tell us a little bit more about your heart behind that within women in the workplace, and something that we had talked about, how it's for men as well as women. Tell us a bit.
So I've been involved with BAFTA has been, BAFTA has actually just recently issued guidelines for the film industry, and that's been adopted by TV and theatre as well, and I was part of a focus group that helped to shape that. And I think what's really interesting is that a lot of these situations where people really want to speak up against injustices that are happening to them at work are to do with power play. And often in my industry, people are freelance. And although the industry is big, it's also small. So there's a fear, and even if you've been reading some of the coverage over the Weinstein scandal, you'll know that there were A-list actresses involved in that whose careers were affected for standing up. And often I've heard people say, well, why didn't they say anything before? Well, they did. And they were discarded, or they were taken off of casting lists. And it wasn't even necessarily told, but they were said, this actress is difficult. You don't want to work with her. And people would take her name off of the list. So one of the discussions that we were exploring was how can people who are lower down in the power structure of a film set have a voice? So we came up with some ideas, like there's a confidential phone line that you can call. Now if you go to the BFI for funding, you have to say that you have a scheme in place, that you have guidelines for people to report if things are happening, and you have to make sure that everybody on set is aware of what's happening.
And this is for, sorry to interrupt, but this is for men as well as women, right?
Absolutely, yeah, because I think that it would be wrong to think that these things only happen to women. They don't. You'll often find that people who've been doing these things have been doing them for a long time, and they escalate. So it can start quite small, and if you're the person who stops the escalation, you can expect to get HR involved. But on lots of productions, they might be small production companies, or even big production companies don't actually have an HR department. So who do you go to? So we've been hopeful that trying to really bring this conversation into the public domain, that people are feeling a lot more empowered to say this isn't acceptable, and it's not. I mean, as a producer, sometimes people say things to me like joke about the casting couch, or how did you get there? Well, the truth is you don't have to do anything, and anyone who is trying to make you believe that if you do something that you don't feel is appropriate to further your career, they're lying. I'm going to say they are lying, and they're trying to manipulate you. Just say no. It's not going to make any difference. Your talent is in you, and no one can stop that. Ultimately, you will keep going forwards. And absolutely, this happens to men too. But one thing you were saying earlier on that I thought was great, and Jen and I were talking about earlier, was you try owning your femininity in the workplace. And I've definitely felt, particularly I think when I was in my 20s, going into my early 30s, and when I started producing in the West End, that I really struggled with the idea of being a female in business, and there's not many very obvious role models. I think subsequent to that, people like Sheryl Sandberg have been more at the fore. But previous to that, I was like, how do you do this without taking on masculine qualities? How without being what you think you should be, which is, I don't know, maybe a bit aggressive, or a bit like Michael Douglas in the 80s. I don't know, how I trying to a boardroom, like, what do you do? How do you? So it's really interesting listening to you talk about like embodying like grace and femininity, because that's something that I'm more aware of now. It's still something that's really interesting. Now I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be me. I want to be a woman in the workplace doing what I do, and exploring how I can use my feminine traits to enhance my job. I don't want to take or be a man, and I want to be me, and I'm a woman and I'm in this role, so I want to own that and feel comfortable with it. So that's something I'm still learning and exploring and trying to make sense of and to bring into my day-to-day life. But I definitely think that I really have some amazing men in my world who I'm really grateful for what they bring, and it's so nice to see how there is no competition, that they are protective. And actually my mentor is a man, and he's one of the most amazing people I know. He's so protective and respectful and normal. I want to say he's a normal man, you know, and it's great to be around somebody who is encouraging and is kind, and to see somebody like him who's really well established in his career looking to bring up the next generation is just really encouraging. So I think that there is a lot of hope, and I'm really encouraged and thankful for the women who are speaking up and the men who are speaking up and saying, really, time is up on this behaviour. It's not acceptable. And the more that we speak out about these things, the more we set zero tolerance in our industry. Just say this is not okay. You know, if anyone was on one of my sets and something happened, we would deal with it straight away, and I would want people to come to me and to tell me, and not for it to get down the line and for me to hear about it from somebody else. I want everybody in that situation to feel that they're in a safe working environment, and the only way forward, I think, is zero tolerance.
Next time on the 7 series, here was a way of life, a potential way of life, whereby women and men were working alongside each other in their strengths. The women's strengths complementing the men's weaknesses, the men's strengths complementing the women's weaknesses, that when the women spoke, the men listened and really took on board what they said and went, okay, instead we're going to do this, because they trusted the woman's wisdom in that moment.
But if I'm to sit back and go, oh, I'm not a producer and I'm just a lyricist, well, if you hear something, or whatever creative field you're in or whatever field you're in, and you feel like you can contribute something.